Good evening, everybody, and we are here for Saturday Showdown. Week 6 was quite something, wasn't it? Texas, Oklahoma, tons of other big games. Caleb, what's your quick thoughts on Texas, Oklahoma?
First, for me, what in the world is that Miami offense coordinator thinking
That too.
in week 6?
Yeah. It was crazy week 6. We're already moving on to week 7. We got a big game with Oregon and Washington, and we're going to get right to it. This is a Saturday Showdown, and we have a special guest here also, so just stay tuned.
Kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world.
4th and 5, the national championship on the line right here. He's going for the corner. He's got it. Vince Young scores.
30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game.
Right. Boise State for the win. They hand it off to Johnson. Boise State has won the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl.
And Kellen Winslow and Dorsey under pressure. Throws it. Incomplete. The Buckeyes.
What an intro that was from David, by the way. David over at Soup Southbound was able to put together that very quickly yesterday for us. We were able to use it today. But in other words, we're joined by Philip Slavin of the Big TEN12, not the Big Ten Network, of the TEN12 Network. So we're gonna go ahead and bring him in, and we'll get this show rocking and rolling. Philip, how you doing tonight?
Brandon Caleb doing well. Yeah, I get it. It's hard. 10, 12, you know.
12, Big Ten. Yeah.
You got conferences whose names don't represent the number of teams in them. It all
Right.
gets very confusing. So,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay.
It's all right. It's a fun time. It's fun. It's a cool name. I enjoy it. I've been watching, kind of watching what you guys have been doing for the last couple of months too. And you guys have built a lot. Got a lot of really cool shows that are part of your network as well. So you want to give us a little bit about what the 10-12 network is?
Yeah, absolutely. This is year 3 for the 10-12 network. We are a Big 12 conference-centric podcast network. Every show on the network is focused on the Big 12 conference. We have a show for just about every school. The goal is one show per school, and then we've got a few. The 10-12 podcast is our kind of words escape me as I sit here. We cover the Big 12 as a whole. We've got a Big 12 After Dark, which is a Twitter live show that gets put out as a podcast. We got a basketball show called Midwest Madness. So this was launched to be a conference-specific network. I didn't see a lot of those. Thought it was a good avenue to try and go down. Decided to launch it right before the news, or in the process of launching it right when the announcement that Oklahoma and Texas were leaving the SEC came out. So luckily the conference is still here, so I didn't launch a network for nothing. And numbers have been great because everyone loves conference realignment, and I have to figure out how to take a network I thought would be like 12 or 13 podcasts that's now going to be like 20 and manage that. So next summer will be a lot of head hunting for Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State podcasts.
Yeah. That's it's quite an addition. Well, what they've done. What's your thoughts on conference realignment, at least for the Big 12 or Big 18, Big 20, whatever it's going to be called?
I mean, it's still going to be Big 12. You're going to be 16 teams once Oklahoma and Texas leave and the four corners schools come in. For Big 12 fans, it's the first time, really, since the Big 12 was formed, where the Big 12 feels like they're on solid ground, and not just solid ground, like you were the aggressor.
Right.
You've always been passive, seeing how everything stacks up, worrying about what Texas and Oklahoma feel, mostly Texas. And so you've seen teams leave constantly. Missouri and Colorado and Nebraska and A&M and now Oklahoma and Texas. And so for the first time, you got your 4 in Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, and UCF just to kind of make yourself stable.
Right.
And that was fine. But going in and being able to poach Colorado and then get the other 3 to come along, like it's the first time the Big 12 was the aggressor. Brett Yormark coming in is the first time the Big 12 has felt like the aggressor. I know we're going to talk about Gonzaga here in a minute, but I mean that kind of also feeds into that mentality as well. Is look, if you're not going out and adding, then you're just sitting back waiting to get poached. Like if you're not, I equate it to the SEC. Like the SEC got to a point as a conference where it said we're not as good as the Big 12 and the Big 10, and so financially throw everything in on that conference, invest in football, get good at football. And it's not like they're like, all right, we're good at football. We've won a few national championships. We're set. They just keep doing everything they can to stay the head hunter, right? They're not sitting back like we're good. We're going to go out and get Oklahoma and Texas. And we're going to bide our time. And now we're going to go poach again when the time is right. And so the SEC has been the aggressor, the Big 10 following suit being the aggressor, and the Big 12 is finally like, all right, it's time to stop being passive and just waiting to get picked over. Let's go be the aggressors ourselves. And so I think from a Big 12 standpoint, it's been nice. From a fan standpoint, it's been great to finally feel like you're winning when everyone talked about you as a conference for, basically 2 full years as dead in the water. And so, it feels good. But that's just it feels good as a conference.
Yeah. No, and that, you can see what they're trying to what they're wanting to build. It's not necessarily just a bunch of powerhouse schools kind of going at it like what you see with the SEC. Bringing in like BYU and Cincinnati, in some of the smaller kind of smaller like Power 5 schools now. How much of a difference do you think that has played a part on, with like having teams like TCU and in Texas, like them trying to, I guess, play up, like UCF and Cincinnati having to play up to that level of competition?
I mean, here's the thing about the Big 12, and I think it's more so than any other conference, especially once Oklahoma and Texas leave. If you really look at the conference for the last, 6, 7, 8 years, this is a conference that is entirely determined upon what teams are at the peak of their development cycle, right? There isn't a Georgia who just repeats and reloads. There's not an Alabama who reloads. There's not a Michigan or Ohio State who reloads. You're losing Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, Texas they're good this year. I don't know why they couldn't be good the rest of the time they were in the conference, and we had to, carry them along with ego and whatever, despite not actually delivering on the field. Oklahoma has been good consistently, but outside of that, it's been who hits the top of their development cycle. I mean, you look at the Big 12 championship game since it came back, somebody has made it every single year.
Right.
Like the only teams who have not been in the Big 12 championship game since it came back are Kansas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, and the 4 newcomers. And so it's been a competitive league. It's been a league where when you hit things at the right note, you're going to have an opportunity. You win your close games. You're going to be there in Arlington competing for a conference championship. Right. And so, I mean, you look at the 4 newcomers, they're struggling. They're 1-8 in conference play at this point, and the only win is BYU over Cincinnati. So none of them thus far. Houston and West Virginia are playing as we're recording this, and the score is 17, West Virginia 14. And so, like, they have had, I think, to some extent, more struggle than we thought, especially like UCF. But and it's just it is different. It is going to take a little bit of time. TCU and West Virginia took a couple of years to get their footing under them. I think Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado will be better situated, being Power 5 schools already, to come in and be more competitive. I'm not sure I'm going to buy all the like Colorado's going to win the Big 12 in their first year back in the conference. Right. But like, it's not like Utah is going to be like, now everyone's going to leave Utah and they're going to be bad now. Like, they're still going to be good. They're going to come in day one and be good. So I think that it's a conference that's already incredibly difficult to predict each year, and that is highly volatile year over year, isn't suddenly going to become not that way. Like, it's going to be that way. And so it is going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of depth to this conference. The bottom of the Big 12 is better than the bottom of every other power conference that exists. Like, you can say the top's not as good. That's fine. But you don't get the depth top to bottom. It's going to be the most fun conference to bet. I'll tell you that right now. It has been, and it'll keep being that way.
Right. Yeah. I forgot what I had a question in my head. And kind of, Caleb, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I find it interesting to see now, like we mentioned, OU, Texas leaving. Who's going to kind of step up and be those new, in a sense, top dogs in the Big 12 with those two kind of powerhouse teams? exiting, who's going to kind of fill their shoes. I think that's going to be what I'm interested to see with, adding these new teams in the future, like who steps up and will be those top teams in the Big 12.
And see, I don't think you're going to have one or two dominant teams in this conference. I just unless somebody finds a way to change their recruiting and starts out recruiting everybody else at a distinctly higher level, there's not enough parity from a recruiting standpoint. There's some parity in athletic department budgets. That's fine, but like the recruiting isn't just night and day here to there. And so again, it's all about development cycles. And when it's about development cycles, when it's about you can't just replace somebody the next year and they be as good as the guy who left or slightly worse. Like the portal is helpful. NIL makes things interesting. I just like it's more likely to have 5 or 6 teams who are a little more consistent. But I mean, we've already seen 4 different teams in the Big 12 championship game the last 2 years, OSU, Baylor, and then Kansas State, TCU. Before that, it was Oklahoma and Iowa State, and it was Oklahoma, TCU, and it was Oklahoma, Texas, and it was Oklahoma, Baylor. And so if you told me there's about 5, 6 teams out of this new, maybe 7 with this new 16-team conference that are consistently toward the top, and everything else was kind of a mess, I'd believe you, because I don't see how 1 or 2 teams are going to just come into this conference and dominate it, because there's no one who does what you need to do at that kind of level to be able to stay on top. It really is a recruiting standpoint. This is a developmental conference. Like we experiment. It's a trickle down. It's like, things come into the Big 12 and everybody else kind of copies, and you recruit and develop. And I think that's kind of how this conference is always going to be. Maybe Colorado has a nice run until Dion leaves for a few years if they're recruiting really well. Maybe Whittingham's at Utah for a while, and that's just smash mouth football, and they stay at top. Like, I just don't see, if you told me next 10 years of this 16-team conference, that 1 or 2 teams are going to dominate it. If you told me that over a 10-year time period, 7 teams won the conference, that sounds more realistic than 1 or 2 do.
Right. Yeah, we talk about conference, or I guess expansion still, in things that may not be happening now, but there's talks already of the continuous conference realignment, with basically the Pac-12 not becoming a conference anymore, besides the 2, unless they somehow merge, with the Mountain West. Who knows what's going to happen there? But there was talks this week of Gonzaga in the Big 12. Possibly trying to work something out. We've only heard a little bit about it. It's a big basketball school, but is it just basketball? They're looking to bring in, is it every athletic team into the Big 12?
All reporting indicates if this is something that actually does happen, you'll bring everything in. Every sport will come over. But this is a basketball decision. There's a few layers to this. Number one, this is being entirely driven by Brett Yormark. I don't believe that Fox or ESPN are back here being like, you guys got to go get Gonzaga. I think this is Yormark entirely. And there's a reason for that. He has said over and over and over again, he believes that college basketball is undervalued, right? That because you're packaging all these things together. It's kind of like when we look at like football is sold on its own from a college football standpoint, but all your Olympic sports all get packaged together. And so when you do that from a TV rights deal, you lose value on the women's tournament, softball, baseball postseason, because it's all sold in one package together.
Right.
And so his viewpoint is that college basketball is undervalued, and that separating the sale of Big 12 basketball and Big 12 football from each other will bring more value to the Big 12. Look, the Big 12 is not going to be the best football conference. You're not going to probably be the second best football conference, which is not. From a stand, you're not going to top the SEC in its popularity. You're not going to top the Big 10 in its popularity. At best, you're going to be the 3rd best conference in college football, right? And that could fluctuate year to year depending upon what the ACC does, what happens with the Pac, what just in general. And so what you are, though, is the best damn men's college basketball conference. And hands down, I don't want to hear about the Big 10. I don't hear about the ACC. It is the Big 12, period. Yeah. And so you're already bringing in Arizona and Arizona State. You have a history of success with college basketball. Yeah, you brought in UCF. Okay. Houston has been like, look at this year. Like, you added Houston to the mix. it is already a gauntlet. Like, thank you, UCF, for coming in and being the sacrificial lamb in the Big 12 this year, because everybody needs that game. I mean, we all make the joke, but even UCF fans are like, yeah, we know, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just trying to enjoy football season. And so if you're going to go sell college basketball, if you're going to go separate it out and sell it to TV on its own, you want as many of the top brands, as many of the teams that John Q. Public looks at and goes, ooh, as you can. As many What is one of the reasons the SEC is bringing in Oklahoma and Texas? It's more marquee games to sell, right? The value of your games go up. Bringing Gonzaga increases the value of the Big 12 basketball games. It just does. And so you're okay with all the other sports because you're going to bring that in. So that's number one, is he wants to sell it. Number two is this. I think we're all smart enough to say that at some point, the people who make the decisions from a financial standpoint are going to come after March Madness. It is not going to stay the same way. It is not going to stay what we love. Like, they don't want Cinderellas are great, but they're too hard to predict. It's much easier to predict putting a bunch of Power 5 teams in and thinking that you're going to get more viewers out of that. Why should the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC keep giving up dollars to these mid-major conferences and not just keep more of that for themselves? So someone's going to come along and screw this whole thing up. And let's say that the SEC and Big Ten and decide to do their own thing and branch off and try and take the ball and go home on their own. They're going to start a basketball tournament in the postseason that doesn't include Gonzaga, Arizona, Baylor, Kansas, Houston, Texas Tech. Are you going to start a basketball season postseason that doesn't include those programs and try and call it a legitimate national championship? Like, you can, but we all understand that that's phony baloney.
Right.
Like, that's great. You have Kentucky and Indiana and occasionally Purdue. Good job.
Yeah.
Awesome. You don't have Kentucky, or you don't have Kansas. Like, you're not going to have these programs. And so by bringing in programs like Gonzaga, and that's why, like, the talk right now is just Gonzaga. Why you look at and give serious consideration down the line to a UConn, right? That's why I think when the ACC falls apart, the choices for the Big 12 may not be as obvious as they seem from a football standpoint. But if the ACC falls apart and I'm focused on selling basketball as its own item, I'm calling Duke. Like, if the football's good and then it drops back off, I don't care if Duke men's basketball is still really good. Hey, Duke, come on down. Hey, North Carolina. Well, North Carolina's going to get to the ACC or Big Ten. They're all going to want North Carolina. But, like, hey, Duke, come on down. Like, that sounds good to me. We want Duke as one of our new teams. Like, that kind of stuff is going to be how the thinking kind of goes from my standpoint in the Big 12 as realignment continues and the conference grows. Is it's going to be a lot of basketball first decisions, because there's nothing you're going to add to make you the number 1 or number 2 football conference, but you can make yourself, you're already number 1 in basketball. There's no reason you can't just keep distancing yourself beyond everybody else.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to, looking at it that way. With the powerhouse teams that they have on the basketball side of things, it definitely makes sense to go that avenue. But I mean, if you look at the football side of things, the football teams are getting better. You got Kansas State is better, Kansas is better than they have been in the last couple of years. So it's those kind of teams that will eventually, hopefully, be those front runners for the Big 12 later on. Plus, you're bringing in Utah, and you got to bring in the hype of Colorado too. It's going to make a may not seem like it, but it's going to make a difference when it comes to
the numbers Colorado's getting.
Yeah,
you think Yormark in the 80s and the Big 12's not looking at that going, we'll take that. But for as long as he's there, we're happy to have that. Bring that sideshow in. We're good with it. Win, lose, or draw, like, we're happy to have Dion in the Big 12 because it's going to benefit the Big 12. Like, we all laughed when Clay Afkoff was like, well, Dion's coming in, and that's why we've been waiting to make a decision, because he adds value. Like, the waiting to make a decision part was bull. That was BS. The Dion adds value part, that was not. And we've seen that. And so having Dion in and having Colorado as a Big 12 game, that's going to be a positive.
Yeah, I agree. Caleb, do you have anything before we move on?
Yeah, nothing else here. That's a lot to, like you said, the addition of Gonzaga and looking at it from that long point of view is really interesting and makes a lot of sense as far as, distancing yourself, having the top basketball conference. Yeah.
I'll make this last note on Gonzaga. And the conversation is that there are some ADs who are on board and there is others who aren't. I don't think you have to rush it right now. You still don't have all the financials worked out for the 4 incoming. There's a lot of financials from that figure out from TV what you would get bringing Gonzaga. I will say this on the fan thing. There are plenty of Big 12 fans who you're going to hear say like, no, don't do that. I don't want you to do that. I think if you got them to tell the truth, most of it's because a lot of people just don't like Gonzaga. People don't like Gonzaga because, well, they get a 1 or 2 seed every year, and they play in the West Coast Conference. They get this easy path, mind you. They've been to 2 national championships recently. They haven't won a national championship. It's really hard to do. They don't win all the time. They schedule incredible non-conference. They make it to the postseason. They earn those 1 and 2 seeds when they get there. They'll lose an occasional West Coast Conference game. They also dominate most of those games. Like Gonzaga is good. It's a good brand. You just don't like Gonzaga because you think they're basically cheating to be able to have the level of success they do. And that's fine. I don't agree with you. I'm not going to argue with you about that. But like, let's be honest. If you're sitting here suddenly getting but the travel for the players, like, I mean, you care, but you don't because it's not like you're going to be traveling to most of these games anyways.
Right.
It's good TV. It's good to have Gonzaga. If you think Gonzaga is that fake, you should want them to join the Big 12 and then beat the tar out of them and be like, see, we told you these guys are pretenders now that they're in a real basketball conference. Bunch of nobodies with your NBA draft picks.
No, you got to think about like, I personally didn't even think about it that way. It's like, you may not want them, but at the same time, you're going to be sitting at the edge of your seat when your team's playing Gonzaga and it's coming down to a buzzer beater shot, or anything to win the game. That's what's going to bring you like, maybe Gonzaga is not that bad. It gave me something to watch today instead of playing some non-conference game that we're just going to, blow the team out of the water anyways.
Middle Tennessee Sisters of the Poor. Yeah. Tech. Sorry.
No, that's funny. Let's move on to a little bit of some week 7, or I guess week 6 talk. Let's talk about the big thing, and that Miami. Like, as me and Caleb were talking at the beginning of the show. I do coach high school football, as well. That was probably one of the, I don't want to say dumbest, non-smart. Okay, I'll just say dumbest decisions that a head coach could ever have made. And at the end of the day, he said, "Oh well, I probably should have stepped up and said something." At the end of the day, like you had the opportunity to, but you didn't. What do you think had been going through his head during that time? And like I said, this isn't the first time this has happened.
No, it happened when he was at Oregon against Stanford, and I think they lost that game in overtime. When you hire, and as I have seen reported, there were like 2 assistant coaches on the sideline telling them like, take a knee, kneel down. And he just was like, this is what we're going to do. Like him not falling on the sword to take that one tells you really what you need to know. The fact that doing this once is bad. If that's
Twice.
That's a bad thing. Twice at 2 different schools.
Yeah.
You haven't learned your lesson. When you hire Mario Cristobal, you are hiring an excellent recruiter. He is going to make your roster so much better. Like hands down. He is not a good in-game coach. He's going to win you a lot of games because he's got good talent. And he can typically get good assistant coaches. But he is not a good in-game coach. So, like, just be okay, like, saying, like, just go ahead and put a loss on the schedule somewhere with Mario Cristobal as your head coach. Because he's going to do something like that once a year to your team. Yeah. So you're going to get good recruiting. You're going to get players. You're going to get studs. You're going to get NFL draft picks. But you're going to lose. Just mark an L. You can put it wherever you want. Doesn't matter. Just put it somewhere on the schedule. One of those games you least expect, he's going to cost you one.
Yeah. Yeah. Caleb, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that just sucks. I think if you think about all these, the players, like, because they went from going to still be undefeated to having a 1 loss and potentially taking themselves out of looking into a college football playoff spot if they were to finish the rest of the season on undefeated. But now you lose to a Georgia Tech team that not only isn't that great, but you look at Ole Miss throttled them a few weeks ago. So now that is a nice blemish on your resume, and you probably just cost yourself a potential spot in the college football playoffs.
Not even just the college football playoffs, but the ACC championship game too. I mean, that you have to get through that before you can get to the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
But it all, it if you're looking at it from the outside and you're a recruit or something, and you have that has to go through your mind, like, I don't know if I really want to go there. Like, if you have to risk not winning a game or missing out on a possible conference championship or a berth in the college football playoffs possibly next year with the 12 team coming along, you got to sit there and think about that for a second. It's like, is that really a guy that I want to play for?
Part of me also thinks if you're the quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, and you have your coach at the end of the game, 30 seconds left, calling a play to run.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm him, I'm audibling. I'm taking a knee. You want to listen to your coach, but at what point is this a dumb decision? But run this play anyway because my coach told me to.
Right.
I'm gonna. No, I'm not playing any sort of like you could have would it like this is on Cristobal and on Cristobal alone.
Yeah.
Like he is the head coach. He makes the final call on this play. People are the players are going to do what he says. The assistants are going to go with what he calls. Like he is the head coach. He is the one who makes this decision. It's on him. He should have fallen on the sword, taken responsibility, because the fact that this has happened twice at two schools under him, that was him.
Yeah.
That was his decision making.
Yeah.
And for Miami's future, like that was a W. Like you had that game. You had not just like, well, it's Georgia Tech. You should beat them. The game was won. You won the game until you didn't. And now you have back-to-back weeks of at North Carolina home against Clemson. And then you have Florida State and Louisville back-to-back later on. Like you have no wiggle room if you want to try and get to the ACC championship game. Because you have those other teams in front of you still that you could beat and have tiebreakers. But like you took a bad loss if your aspirations, which people thought they were heading into that game, were ACC championship game.
Yeah. Yeah, and you look at you still look at their schedule ahead. I mean, Louisville's no joke either. Louisville's tough. Clemson is still Clemson. And you still got Florida State's. They're a top 5 team in college football right now. So you got to get they'll be lucky if they win 3 of those games or even 2 of those games, if they're even competitive in 2 of those games. My opinion. I don't know. I could be wrong. You never know. It's college football. That's the fun part about it. That is the fun part about it. The other big game was Texas Oklahoma. That came down to was it like the last 13 seconds or something like that. Caleb, what's your thoughts on the Texas Oklahoma game?
Yeah, so it's like I said last week. Looking at this Texas team, I wasn't a believer yet because something like this was going to happen. It always happens when Texas is having a good season. It never fails. They lose a game at some point in the season. And I said last week on the show, this week, if any week, was going to be that week that they could possibly get beat. And, I will say I picked Texas to win because I said I'm going to pick them to win until I'm proved wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we saw what happened. Oklahoma, very defensive-minded team under Brett Venables, came out, right at the beginning of the game, got a quick pick off of yours and went down and capitalized off that. So, now the roles are kind of reversed. You're looking at Oklahoma as a top 10 team right now. And, who else is going to really contend with them to make I think they have an easy road back to the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah. Philip, you got any thoughts on that one?
I mean, it's still Texas OU in Arlington.
Yeah.
Like they're both going to make it. And I don't – OU is a good team. I'm not going to hold Texas like up, same old Texas. We're not going to play that because they lost to a really good Oklahoma team. Like these are 2 good teams right now. Like Oklahoma exposed Texas's red zone issues, which have been an issue all season. Quinn Ewers is good. He's not great. And that's fine. Like Oklahoma made mistakes early in this game. Texas made a mistake. Like neither team played a perfect game.
Right.
And then Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel stepped up on the final game-winning drive and got him a win. And so, like, I don't come away for like you're always gonna like judge the team that lost and pick apart everything and be less so for Oklahoma. Oklahoma made plenty of errors and mistakes in this game as well. Like that, their special teams were god awful. Like I do a Big 12 special team show on YouTube every Wednesday where we just break down special teams plays from the past weekend. Half of this week's show was OU special teams gaffes. Like penalties on special teams, missed field goals, block punts in the end zone, like just mistake.
Yeah.
Texas defense is good. The offense has got to figure some things out. Maybe they will over this, they're off this week. So is Oklahoma. But then you look at the schedule the rest of the way and you say, who else is going to make Texas pay? Oklahoma did and still won by a small margin, right? By less than a touchdown. Who else in the Big 12 is going to make Texas pay like Oklahoma did? Maybe somebody will. Maybe somebody can step up. I'm not saying Texas won't lose again, but like not enough times to not be in Arlington. So part of this is just like we're going to see Texas OU in Arlington in December. And then it's a question of does either of them put themselves in a situation to make the playoff, or do we have two Big 12 teams just in New Year's Six Bowls?
Yeah. Texas has Houston, BYU, Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech left. If there's any team in there that possibly could give Texas a little challenge, I'd imagine it's Kansas State, right?
I would like to think so. Texas hasn't had that much trouble with like Oklahoma's the team that always has trouble with Kansas State. And they don't have Kansas State on their schedule. They get Kansas State at home. They get BYU
at home.
Houston. Like if there is a Texas game in Texas moving forward, it's on the road at Iowa State in November. Yeah. And somebody puts that on as a night game. So it's frigid cold in November, Iowa State, Texas, low scoring, ugly game that Iowa State finds a way to pull off. And that's Texas loss. But and again, I'm not saying that they won't lose again, but for Texas to not make it to Arlington, they're going to have to lose like at least twice or at least one more time. And then they're going to have tiebreakers involved. Well, they already have the tiebreaker over Kansas. They don't play West Virginia. When they get BYU, I'm not picking BYU to beat Texas in Austin this year. I just don't see how Texas does it. And with Oklahoma not having a loss, they're going to need at least two. Oklahoma's schedule is even easier than Texas's.
Yeah,
I
looking at it now,
I can maybe foresee one loss. Maybe they got to go to Provo and play BYU in when is that, November? I think. Yeah,
November 18th.
Also the same weekend. So Texas is at Iowa State, OU's at BYU on November 18th. Outside of that, like OU's got to go to Kansas the week after they play UCF, and Kansas is going to be coming off of an idle week. Maybe that's a trap game for them. I don't know, but I just don't see like two games you're like they're going to lose to.
Yeah. And you see, looking at Oklahoma, they got UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, and TCU. So yeah, I don't see. I agree. I don't see how it's not Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12 championship game. You're looking at the Pac-12 now. USC had a little bit of a scare against a decent Arizona team. I wouldn't say they're a great Arizona team. A decent Arizona team. What's your thoughts on USC? And rather not they've already shown that their defense isn't great. They've given up a lot of points this year.
It's a Lincoln Riley team. It's a Lincoln Riley coach team. If he was at Oklahoma, this is what Oklahoma would look like. Caleb Williams would be awesome. They'd be scoring a lot of points. They'd be giving up a lot of points, and they'd have scares and a loss or two against tough teams, and that'd be it.
Yeah.
So, yes, David Harris. The irony of it's what we called the nightmare scenario before the season, and now it's just inevitable. So,
that's what it is. What are your thoughts on being the Big 12 guy? What is your thoughts on the Pac-12 really quick? In the way that they've just seemed to be dominating the college football.
What a way to go out of being in existence by finally having a great year and a bunch of quarterbacks and a bunch of ranked teams, and like should put a team in the playoff if the whole conference doesn't eat itself alive.
Mm-hmm.
But like where it's kind of like Texas. Where's this been for the last 10 years or so?
Yeah.
It's fun. I love college football. I hate what's about to happen to Washington State and Oregon State. I think they're a ton of fun. I like that Oregon State's good. Washington is a ton of fun. Like that team is the Oregon Washington game tomorrow on Saturday is it's gonna
be a fun one.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. That is the best team either one of them has faced, and by a very, very large. Like the next best team they both face is Arizona.
Yeah,
like it could be an incredible game. Just it could be awesome, and I hope it is.
Yeah, Caleb, what's your thoughts on the Pac-12 and the Oregon Washington this weekend?
Yeah, so I want to start off with, like you mentioned, that USC Arizona game. I think these past few weeks, USC's slowly gotten exposed that they don't have a great defense. So if you have an offense to keep up with them, you're easily in that game and have a chance to win. It's just at that point, which offense makes the most out of all of their plays and which one maybe gets the quick edge on, taking advantage of a turnover, whether that means getting a touchdown compared to a field goal or something like that. So I think as USC starts playing some of these higher opponents like your Oregon, your Washingtons, these could be some very close games where, like Philip just said, you might see them implode on themselves and, USC loses to somebody and you have all these different ties on, with several losses, and then you possibly lose a team out of that college football playoffs berth. But then flipping over, Oregon Washington, that is going to be a fantastic game. That's actually my game of the week this week to watch. I don't know how it's not.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks in this game. I think it's going to be hopefully a very exciting game. Like we said, that's going to be the toughest test for each of those two teams that they've faced so far. And it could kind of start aligning who you might see making their way to that Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah. Philip, we do one thing. We do like a game of the week kind of thing. We like to wrap up kind of like the week 7 talks. Do you have a game of the week for week 7?
Well, let's pull up the schedule. I mean, there's quite a few. Like I mentioned, Oregon Washington's going to be incredible. Hold on, I got to pull it up because I don't remember the entire. I'm so focused on the Big 12 all the time. Let's see. Do we have a good sicko game of the week as well? Like I don't. As I scroll, like Oregon Washington's got to be the game.
Yeah.
A&M Tennessee could be interesting. Iowa Wisconsin should decide who faces against Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. There's a lot of teams on that are off this week. I mean, there's USC Notre Dame.
That should be a good one.
Miami is at North Carolina, like we mentioned. You get seriously, thanks Pac-12. UCLA at Oregon State. I think it's Oregon. I don't know how it's not Oregon Washington. Like as I scroll through here, like there's games that are gonna be fun that I'm gonna keep an eye on. Like I don't know how the game of the week isn't Oregon Washington. I can't even find like I'm trying to find a good, like Georgia Southern. If you're someone who enjoys the G5, Georgia Southern James Madison should be a very good Sun Belt game. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff. That one should be fun. But I mean, I think it's Oregon Washington. I don't see another game on the weekend where you're just like, man, those are two good teams. They've looked so good. Yeah, they've had moments you're like, okay, well maybe they're human, but they've had so many games where they're just beating teams. I'm very interested in what they look like against each other.
Yeah, that should be a good one. I think for me, I'm looking at the UCLA Oregon State game. I think that's a solid. I'm not saying it's like the game of the week overall. Probably my game of the week would be that one. Outside of USC and Notre Dame, I mean, Notre Dame is playing a ridiculous schedule right now. I think they've played. I think I saw the little stat earlier. They're playing. This is their 4th straight game against a ranked team, which is crazy.
With the Pac-12, I get props to the Pac-12. Like I know I'm the Big 12. I'm supposed to be Big 12. Like I feel bad for like Arizona Because Arizona, I do think they're a better team this year. You lose your starting quarterback. Here's your scheduling to start conference. You got Stanford early. Good, got that win. Number 7, Washington, at number 9, USC, at 19, Washington State, 15, Oregon State, 18, UCLA. Hey, we go to Colorado. The most fun team. Oh, by the way, they were home against number 16, Utah. Like,
right.
It's one of those teams like, we know we're better this year, but our record's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Because
strictly because the other teams are just as good or not better.
They're very good. Like there's a lot of good teams in this conference. And so does someone come out of it with this is a year where normally like you get out of a year where like the Pac-12 champs got 2 losses, maybe only 1, but they still get left out. If you can get out of this Pac-12 with only 1 loss, like unless there's 4 undefeated teams, you're going to the playoff.
Right.
Like you are.
You should.
Because and they all have to, and again, they all play each other. So
the
problem's going to be, can someone escape this conference with just 1 loss? I don't know. It's fun to find out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting in the last, was there 6 weeks left, 5 weeks left? 6 weeks left of the season.
Don't say it. It's making me sad.
I know. I'm sorry.
It takes forever to get here, and then it's
gone like that
in a second.
Yeah, I understand that from all ends. I mean, we're like I said at Coach High School, we're already in our week 8. We have 2 regular season games, and then we have playoffs. Once you get to playoffs, it's win or go home. I mean, it'd be done that quick. But it's a fun time. You enjoy the hell out of it when it's here.
Oh yeah.
So let's move over to our week 7 picks. So we just use the ESPN Pick'em challenge to do this. And then the first game on our list, Caleb has Doug's picks. Doug wasn't able to be here tonight. We'll go ahead and start with we'll try to make these as quick as we can. We got Georgia Southern versus James Madison in the first pick. It's a 4-1 Georgia Southern team versus a 5-0 James Madison team. Caleb, who are you going with?
Yeah, give me the Dukes of James Madison. They've just been a really hot team, even dating back to last year. And, you see what success they've had just getting to move up a division. And, I think this team continues to roll against a 4-1 Georgia Southern team.
Mm-hmm. Philip?
I really like JMU. I do. I actually think, though, that Georgia Southern's played the far more difficult schedule than James Madison has. This game is in Harrisonburg. The weather's going to be bad. I think Georgia Southern can pull this off. Like, I think this will be a close game. I don't see a game where like JMU's only like a 6-point favorite. Like, if I was picking spread, I think I'd pick Georgia Southern to cover in this one. I'm going to pick Georgia Southern. I'm just going to, my record here doesn't matter. So I'm just going to say Georgia Southern pulls off the upset because I do think it's very possible.
Yeah. Last week, speaking of records, I ended up I was 2-8 last week. Caleb was 4-6. It was a rough week. I don't quite know what Doug's was. But I don't think it was any better than what me and Caleb threw out there this week or last week. I'm gonna go with JMU. I think James Madison will get a nice little victory here over a good 4-1 Georgia Southern team. Move on to the next one, which is Oregon and Washington.
Well, before we move on, Doug also had James Madison.
James Madison. Okay, that's fair. I forgot about Doug's picks. Oh, you got them all right.
Yeah,
we're all good. Okay, let's get his first with the Oregon Washington game.
Yeah. So in this one, Doug went with Oregon in this game.
Okay. I like it. I'm picking Washington. I think Washington's going to win. They're not going to handle Oregon. It's going to be a very high scoring game. We're not going to probably see a lot of defense in this one, but I'm going to go Washington. I think Michael Penix Jr. is a better quarterback than Bo Nix. I think that'll be a big difference in this game. Caleb?
Yeah. Give me the Ducks.
The top
I'm taking Oregon in this one. I just love how they're playing this year. I think, like you said, I think Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. are two different types of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You've got Michael Penix that's more of a mobile running style quarterback, whereas you've got Bo Nix that's a heavily pocket passer, but isn't afraid to run and can run pretty well. He is experienced, played in the SEC, jumped over to Oregon, has been in college football a long time. And I think Oregon gets this one done and makes their run to the playoff.
I like it. Philip?
I'll take Washington. I think we're going to see the reemergence of Roadbow when they're having to go up against a good team. The last good team I could argue that Oregon had to face was a road game at Texas Tech. They played Colorado at home. Stanford was on the road. Stanford's awful. That game against Texas Tech blew a game like they have a lot this season. I think being at home for Washington, I think Penix, I think Penix needs to be getting, especially if Washington goes the way I actually think they will this season based off of so far. Like, I think you should start buying some Michael Penix wins the Heisman tickets because he has been incredible. And no one's really talked about it as much as other things going on. I'm picking Washington for this one.
Yeah, it's all the Caleb Williams Pac-12 talk. That's the only thing you really hear out of.
No Caleb, which I get it when you're having to carry that team with a defense that is that maybe Lincoln is just doing this on purpose. This is how he gets his quarterbacks their Heismans, and he keeps getting good quarterbacks. You're gonna come here, you're gonna get a Heisman, you're gonna be the number 1 overall pick because you're not gonna have any defense. You're gonna have to carry this whole team, but it's gonna work for you. It's gonna work. You're gonna be number 1 overall.
You might have to throw 6 touchdowns a game.
Yeah,
but you're going to get a Heisman Trophy at the end of it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one, which is a pretty big, I guess it'd be a big SEC matchup with Texas A&M and Tennessee.
Yeah, so in this one, Doug's going with A&M in this one.
Okay, on the road in Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't lose at home. That's a big one. Okay, Philip, we'll start with you on this one.
Man, I don't love either one. And I don't think Tennessee is as good as their number 19 ranking implies that they are. I think Texas, like you went on I know you're at home. The best team you've played is Florida. And would we say that Florida is good or okay? Is Texas A&M worse or better than Florida? And I like enough that you're like confidently saying either direction, not like,
oh yeah,
just pick your favorite. Tennessee being at home, I'll take Tennessee to win this one in a close one. But like, it definitely feels like I'm going to pick Tennessee because they're at home. If this was at A&M, I'd pick A&M.
That's kind of how I feel with it. I think I'll pick Tennessee for basically the same reason. The Tennessee's tough to beat at home. They haven't lost a game at home in a while. It's like 2019 or something like that.
They're a 3-point favorite, which home field typically gets you 3 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Vegas says this is a neutral game. That's about it.
Yeah, we'll go Tennessee on my end. I'll stick with the home team here. We got everybody's picks right, Caleb.
And then I'm gonna go with Tennessee too. I just think A&M, Bama's not as dominant as they have been, but I'm gonna go with A&M comes out with a Bama hangover, like we've seen in the past. Teams that play Bama doesn't come out and play well the next week either. It is a loss, and just from what we saw last week, I don't know if Jimbo Fisher had success at Florida State, got that national championship, but he just hasn't proved it here at A&M, especially with the recruiting classes he's had. For him not to have more success than he's had, I'm just not sold on Jimbo Fisher and A&M. So Tennessee takes this one at home and in Rocky Top.
Yeah. Okay. Like it. Next one, got number 23 Kansas at Oklahoma State. What do we got for Doug's pick?
So Doug in this one is going with the Jayhawks, Kansas.
Okay. All right. Caleb?
Yeah, in this one, I'm still not sold on Oklahoma State just with that Southern Alabama loss really sticks with you when you look at this team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going with Kansas in this one. They've really came out and shown that they're an improved football team. They're not the Kansas of the past that we know that are just terrible at football.
Right.
Coach Leopold's got them in a really good spot. With one loss, I'm going to go with this Kansas team, and hopefully they get Daniels back this week. He was out last week with dealing with some back issues, but maybe he's back this week.
He's. I'll tell you right now, he's not.
Okay.
It's Jason Bean again.
I'll still go with Kansas in this one.
That's fair enough. Philip?
Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy are good for one. What the hell just happened? Loss and what the hell just happened? Win every season. I think we might have gotten both out of the way with the Kansas State win and the South Alabama loss.
Yeah.
I am not. My opinion on Oklahoma State is I'm not sure they're as bad as the loss of South Alabama implies at this point. And that's not an overreaction to Kansas State so much as it's that 3 quarterback stupid thing they did for 3 weeks cost them 2 games against South Alabama and probably Iowa State. Like, had they just gone with Alan Bowman week 1, like everyone thought they were going to, instead of screwing around for 3 weeks and then naming him and starting quarterback and wasting everyone's time, I don't think the South Alabama game happens. And how do you view OSU then? Here's the stat I'll give you. Oklahoma State has now won 8 of their last 9 as a home underdog. They're a home underdog this week. It's not that I believe in Oklahoma State. I'm going to follow the trend and say OSU gets the win here.
Okay. I'm still going to pick Kansas State or Kansas to take that win this week. I again could be wrong. You never know. It's college football. That's the fun part about it. But I think huh?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is the fun part.
I'll stick with Kansas. We'll move on to the next one. It's the 5th game on the list here. It's Marshall, and I believe it's Georgia. It's not Georgia Southern.
Georgia State.
Georgia State. Marshall and Georgia State. Last week I picked Marshall, and they did not. It wasn't a great game for Marshall. Maybe it's because I brought up the Matthew McConaughey reference. It's probably what it was. But I'll stick with Marshall on the road to take this one.
Yeah, and so in this one, Doug has Marshall as well, and I think I'm going to take Marshall as well. So we got Marshall across the board so far. Over to you, Phil, for Marshall, Georgia State.
Yeah, give me Marshall. I mean, they were in that game with NC State the last time they were on the field until the fourth quarter. They were down 1 heading into the fourth quarter and then lost by 7. So, like, give me Marshall.
Yeah, like that. Next big game. It's a big game for Notre Dame. The 2 losses on the season to pretty good teams. USC coming off again that overtime scare to Arizona. Does Notre Dame take the win, or does USC go into Notre Dame and get the win? What is that?
We'll start off here in this one. Doug's going with USC in this game. As far as for me, I think this game is going to come down to Caleb Williams versus a pretty decent Notre Dame defense. And then, because Notre Dame and Sam Hartman is going to be able to score on this USC defense. I think that's been proven, about 2 weeks in a row now, with Colorado coming back the week before. And then, this game last week going into 3 overtimes. So I still think until it's like I've said with a few other teams, until they lose, I'm going to go with USC and Caleb Williams and just the talent that he brings to just win this game, on his back. But I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go USC.
Okay. Philip?
Great offense, no defense, versus great defense, suspect offense.
Okay.
That's what we've got here. Is Notre Dame really going to lose 3 in a row? Is that what's going to happen here? They're going to lose 3 in a row? I think Sam Hartman has a bounce back game. I think USC's defense makes Notre Dame's offense look like everything has magically been fixed. And Notre Dame's defense is good enough to get a few stops to let Notre Dame pull off a win here at home.
Yeah. That's where my mindset is with that. I think Notre Dame will get the win, and take down the almighty USC. So
The almighty
uh,
USC offense, not
the
the
almighty USC offense. There we
the
go.
defense is not
Yeah,
almighty.
no, it is not. Next game is number 25 Miami at number 12 UNC. Are you surprised at UNC? Should we be surprised with how good UNC is?
I mean, Drake May.
Drake
We
May.
talk about. I
Yeah.
mean, we sit here and praise USC because of Caleb Williams. Like North Carolina has Drake May,
Right.
and let's not act like North Carolina's played a super difficult schedule. Like, yes, you played 4 Power 5 teams and App State, who you almost lost to again.
Right.
But South Carolina, Minnesota, Syracuse all at home, and a road game at Pitt, who's god awful. Like, it's easy to say that Miami is the best team North Carolina's played this season.
Okay. Who are you taking in this one then?
I'll take Miami to bounce back.
Okay.
It's not that I believe in Miami. This game is a home game for North Carolina.
Right.
2, 3, 5 of their first 6 at home. But I don't think North Carolina's played anybody, like not really. And I think that Miami is better than a coach's gaffe, and I think that team is going to come out looking to recover from last week. So I'll take Miami in this one.
Yeah. Caleb, what do you got?
Yeah, so real quick, Doug's taking North Carolina in this one.
Mhm.
I think I'm going to go North Carolina as well. Drake May, he's done pretty well so far. And, it was his first week back last week. Their wide receiver finally got his waivers cleared. He's back. I think he starts finding his rhythm this week. He had a few catches last week, nothing crazy, but it was his first, game action last season, having to sit out these first few weeks. So I'm going to take Drake May and the Tar Heels in this one to get the win here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with what you got. I'm gonna go with UNC. I think Drake May is just gonna be just a little bit too much for Miami, and it'll more likely be for me a closer game than I think we all think it possibly could be. A 3-point game at least. Next up on the list, you got Mizzou and somehow number 24 Kentucky. For me, I'm going to pick Mizzou last week. It was a rough one for them. It was a game they probably could have won. I'm going to pick Mizzou to go into Kentucky and beat Kentucky this week. What does Doug got?
Doug's got Kentucky in this one.
Okay. He doesn't trust Mizzou anymore over a loss to LSU.
And then I think for me here, Kentucky had a rough week last week.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go against a Georgia team that I'm convinced that Auburn-Georgia matchup was Georgia's wake-up call.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, crap, we need to actually play like Georgia. And they came out and took that out on Kentucky. I think Kentucky bounces back this week. It's a home game for them. I think Ray Davis comes out, has a big game against Missouri, and Kentucky gets the win.
Okay. Philip, what do you think about this SEC match?
I'll take Kentucky. I'm not going to overreact to Kentucky losing to Georgia in the way they did. I'm less bought in on the Georgia had their wake up game and more bought on it on the Kentucky wants to be Georgia. They're just Georgia with way less talent. And if you're going to have the same style, and one team's more talented than the other, the more talented team should kick the tar out of the less talented team, right? And so I'm not going to overreact to that. I would be more concerned with Missouri and what happened against LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to ride with Kentucky at home in this one.
Okay. I like it. Got everybody's picks on that one, right? Moving on. Alrighty. Next up, you got UCLA and number 15 Oregon State. Good God.
Hey, 2 OSUs that are orange and black with a former quarterback that's the head coach. It's easy to confuse the two.
Same colors in their logos. On this thing look very similar. They're both facing the same direction. They're very similar when you're looking at them really quickly. Caleb, what do you got here for us?
Yeah, so in this game, this is an interesting game. UCLA's got one of the top defenses so far, this season. It's looked pretty good. And then you've got a very talented Oregon State team that has, in my opinion, one of the top running backs that's maybe not as talked about as some of these other guys with Martinez. And then you got a veteran quarterback in DJU. So I think in this one, I'm going to take Oregon State in this one.
Okay, I like
And
it.
then
Phillip? Oh, already got Doug's. Never mind.
I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say, Doug's got UCLA.
UCLA. Okay. Phillip, what do you think about this one?
I like Oregon State. Let me just start by saying that like it's fun. I love the story. The OSU comp is legit. Like go Beavs. I think it's fun. That UCLA defense is legit. Like it's really really good. I think it's good enough to cause Oregon State enough problems for UCLA to get out of Corvallis with a win.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like it. I think I'm gonna go Oregon State with this one. I think I like their running. The running back is good, like Caleb mentioned. That could be the difference, but that it's like you guys just said that UCLA defense is very very good. So this should be a great game overall, from start to finish. And the last one on our list, you got NC State and then Duke. Duke's at home, 4-1, number 17 in the rankings. So Phillip, what do you think about this one?
Man,
It's a tough
I don't
one.
know how to feel about Duke without this. This is Duke's first game without their starting quarterback after they lost him against Notre Dame, right? Because I think they were off.
They were off, but they're saying they're not 100%. I think ruling out Riley Leonard. They're saying if he doesn't play, it will be redshirt freshman that will get his first start.
Here's the deal. Like Riley Leonard's legs are a big part of what makes Riley Leonard successful. If he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, which can be a nagging issue for a long time, even if he plays, that's not good for the Duke. The Duke defense is very good, like it is. But if you're starting quarterback who is vital to your success, and I just mean by the style that they play offense, his legs are very important. I don't love NC State, but I kind of want to fade Duke until he's healthy. So give me NC State in this one.
Yeah. Caleb,
and
what
I
do you
like
got?
Duke, and I love this story this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll start out with Doug's pick. Doug's taking Duke in this one. NC State, they had a close match with Marshall last week. We just talked about that. It was a back and forth game until they took the lead late in that game. I think I'm going to go with Duke in this game. I really like that Duke defense. We'll see if Riley Leonard plays. Who knows if he is or not? I'm sure that's probably going to be almost a game time decision.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play, it'll be interesting to see what we see out of the redshirt freshman. Henry Belen is coming in. He's 6'3", 210. I don't know, but I'm going to go with Duke in this one.
Okay. I wish you could pick this one later on, so when we know for sure who's going to be the starting quarterback for Duke, because I think that does make a difference. And I think in this one, and I think if it is the redshirt freshman that does play, I think NC State has a good chance of winning this one. Plus, I got to get my picks back. So I'm gonna go. I'll go with the underdog here. I'll go NC State to get a nice little win at Duke. It's probably gonna bite me in the ass like the rest of them have, like last week did. But it's what it is. We got our last little segment of the week, and it's something that we started 2 weeks ago, Caleb.
Yeah. Before we jump to our parlay of the week,
What do you got?
Just to update everybody on the standings for the VSN Pick'em.
Oh yeah. Good call.
We've got currently Ertle's picks is at number 1. You've got NY St. Joe's picks at number 2. You've got a 2-way tie for 3rd. I'm sitting in 8th place. We've got Doug sitting in a four-way tie for ninth,
Ninth.
and
I'm in 14th.
yeah. So, like Doug's been saying these past few weeks, at the moment we're still giving away prizes, and it looks to the point where it's at least that first place might be getting out of reach.
44-16 at this point of the year. It might be that, but you got to get four picks back. That might be tough.
Yeah, and then 40, I can see that's only 3 picks away. So that could easily happen in a swing of a week. We've seen where we've had bad weeks. Maybe somebody else has a bad week. But yeah, so that's where our standings are for our VSN Saturday Showdown Pick'em competition.
Yeah, it's really cool. We got really cool stuff that we're giving out, including that home field gift card for first place. So make sure you probably a little too late to jump in to get to that first spot. But for whoever has it right now, who's in it, keep going. You ready for the parlay of the week? It got ruined with Doug's last week. Philip, this is something we just kind of started, like I said, 2 weeks ago. Just a simple little parlay. Mine for this week, I like the Tulane at Memphis with over 54.5. I think both of those offenses are very high powered. They're very high powered offenses that are going to come out and sling the ball around. So I think that one goes over 54.5. Caleb, do you want to explain yours? And
yeah. And then for me, I'm doubling down on the Georgia game this week with a 2-1 pick here with Georgia covering the spread and getting the win and the over of 55.5. It happened last week. They won 51-13. This is hoping that maybe Vandy can put on at least 10 points or so. Who knows? But I really think Georgia's going to run away with this one. It's Vanderbilt. It's everybody's give me game in the SEC. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's Vandy. It's Georgia. Georgia looks like they've really put it all together and figured it out last week. So,
yeah, we're looking at Doug's Devin Neal with 2 touchdowns to score at least 2 touchdowns. Kansas wide receiver at Oklahoma State. Do you think that's a possibility, Philip, being the Big 12 guy here?
Devin Neal, running back. Yeah,
running back. Sorry.
I mean, Neal's good. Taking Neal to score a touchdown in a game is just free money. So I mean, 2 is a bit more of a gamble, but I can see it.
Okay, I like it. If you were to add anything, which one of these is your like for sure that you could see happening?
Oh man, for sure, I'll take the under 45.5 in Cincinnati versus Iowa State on Saturday morning.
I like that one too. That's a good one because both of those that Iowa State. I'm thinking of Iowa, but Cincinnati's offense necessarily isn't the high power offense that we probably used to seeing.
They put up a lot of yards. They don't necessarily put up a lot of points.
Right. Yeah. Caleb, you got anything else for us?
No, I think it's another yet exciting week for college football. I'm excited for that Oregon-Washington game, 2:30. Your midday marquee matchup. I'm surprised this isn't the night game. We get to watch Duke NC State instead, but I think it's going to be an exciting game that could have definite college football playoff implications on it.
I like it. Philip, what are your thoughts on week 7 and kind of closing thoughts on things?
It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm excited. At this point, I'm just give me football. I'm anticipating games is great. You never know which ones are going to be awesome and fun to watch. So I'm just going to sit down and watch Big 12 a lot and flip to games. You're like, ooh, what's this? So should be fun.
Yeah. Philip, do you want to let everybody know who's watching, who's tuned in, where they can find you at?
You can find every show on the TEN12 Podcast Network at TEN12network.com. TEN, the number 12, the word network. We are on Twitter at TEN12 Network, TEN, number 12, the word network. This is live, so this is TEN12 Day. It's October 12th, 10/12. It's 10/12 Day.
So you guys got a big thing going on, right?
We're doing a giveaway right now until 10:12 p.m. So about another hour to go. Everybody who follows us, follows Charlie Hustle, and retweets the tweet will be entered in for a $30 gift card. We're doing a $30 gift card on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and a $10 gift card or $30 gift card on Instagram. You can find us there at 1012pod.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming in tonight. for the show. Thanks for hanging with us. And I'm sure at some point hopefully we'll be able to connect again and get some more information and some more college football talk.
Appreciate you guys having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem. Caleb, what do you got for us? Where can you find us? Find you at?
So you can find me on X, Twitter at Big Weekly. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we're all there. Dropping a new episode tonight coming out, so get ready for that.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Variety Sports Network. Make sure you do subscribe. Don't whatever I was just about to say. Don't do. Make sure you do subscribe, and like everything from the TEN12 Network over at Whoop Pig Weekly. Tons of awesome stuff coming your way. So thanks for watching.
Hey, this is Brandon, CEO of the Variety Sports Network. Thank you again for watching tonight's show. Best way you can support us is by hitting that subscribe button, that like button, and hitting the notifications so you don't miss out on the next show right here on the Variety Sports Network.